Hi, I'm Kayla. They said I was too sick to stay, but what they really meant was I was too inconvenient to love. My mother rewrote our family photo, literally cut me out of it. They sold my home, erased my name, buried my inheritance, and smiled like nothing ever happened. But my brother, he kept a secret that changed everything. And now I'm telling our story. What kind of family does this? I should have known something was off the moment I got the invitation. A family dinner? At my sister Meredith's house? No birthday, no holiday, no game night excuse? Just a get together? That alone would have raised eyebrows, but the wording of the text, formal, polite, not her usual bring wine or don't come, that sealed it. Something was coming. Alec picked me up that evening. My little brother's the kind of guy who doesn't say much, but when he shows up, it matters. He helped me into the car without a word, but he glanced at my crutches and his jaw tensed. He hated seeing me like this. I hated being seen like this. The house looked perfect, too perfect. Candles lit, cloth napkins folded, the kind of setup Meredith only pulled for clients or funerals. The moment I walked in, I felt like I'd walked into a courtroom, not a family home. We sat down, polite smiles, stilted greetings. No one asked about my recovery, though. They all knew I just had surgery. No jokes from Uncle Marvin. No glass of wine from Mom. It was quiet, surgical. I tried to stay light. So who died? Meredith didn't even blink. We just thought it'd be nice to have everyone together. Yeah, right. The small talk was dull and forced. Dad asked about my recovery with all the warmth of a tax audit. Mom sat silent, her eyes darted around, never landing on mine. Alex stayed beside me, watching, picking at his food. I started realizing I was the reason they'd come together. Then the hammer dropped. We've been talking. My sister began placing her fork down with a little too much precision. We're concerned about how things are going for you. I laughed. You mean my job putting me on unpaid leave after surgery? Yeah, not ideal. Dad chimed in. It's not just the job, Kayla, you've been reliant. I looked at him. On who? We're all struggling, Meredith added. Voice smooth, like ice water, and Alec told us you've needed help with rent, groceries. I snapped toward Alec. His face was stone. I never. She didn't ask. Alec said, cutting Meredith off finally. I helped because she didn't ask. Because she wouldn't. Meredith wasn't done. That's the thing, Kayla. You act like you don't need us, but you're bleeding us dry. Emotionally. Financially. I stared at her, words dissolved in my throat. Mom finally spoke. Maybe if you were more transparent about your needs, we wouldn't feel so blindsided. I looked at her. My mother, who once sat by my hospital bed for 2 straight nights after my appendix burst. Now, she couldn't even look me in the eye. Meredith leaned in. This has gone on long enough. We've decided it's time for you to move out of the family house. You have a week. I blinked. You... What? Dad crossed his arms. We've already found someone to rent your room. They'll be moving in next Sunday. I felt my body lean back, like I'd been hit. My vision tunneled. I've never asked for anything, I said quietly. Exactly, Meredith snapped. You make us feel guilty, like we're supposed to offer because you're family, I whispered. That's the thing, Kayla, Dad said, voice like gravel. Sometimes you have to let go of the weak links. And there it was. I stood up. My legs wobbled beneath me. Crutches barely steady. I opened my mouth, nothing. I tried again. I was never the weak link. I said, breath shallow. I was the glue. No one moved. No one argued. Not even Mom. Then Alex stood. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't even look angry. Just done. If this is what love looks like, he said, looking around the table. I'm glad I've kept my distance. Silence. We left without saying another word. The night air hit me like cold bathwater. Alec opened the car door, helped me in again. The drive was quiet. I couldn't speak. My throat burned, but not from crying. I didn't have the energy to cry. I stared ahead, headlights cutting through the dark. If this is the bottom, what's next? We drove for miles without saying much. Just the soft hum of Alec's old truck and the dark Kentucky back roads rolling under the wheels. Every so often, a neon gas station sign or a flickering diner light flashed by, then vanished into the black. I stared out the window, watching my own reflection, blink back at me, blank. Tired, disconnected. My brain played reruns of that dinner on a loop. Meredith's voice, that smug, Practiced tone, Dad's cold dismissal, Mom's silence. Each memory floated up, poked at me, then sank again. It was like watching someone else's nightmare while knowing you couldn't wake them up. Alec adjusted the heat, glanced at me sideways. You alright? I'm fine. He didn't believe me. Didn't push either. After another few turns, he cleared his throat. I've got the cabin. It's quiet. No one's around for miles. You can stay there as long as you want. I finally looked at him. Why are you doing this for me? He kept his eyes on the road. Because someone's got to remember who you really are. I didn't say anything back. Just gripped the seatbelt tighter and let the quiet carry us forward. The air shifted as we got closer to the woods. Less streetlight, more shadows. I wasn't sure what I was heading into, but whatever it was, it already felt less hollow than what I'd left behind. Somewhere along the drive, a memory surfaced, one I hadn't let myself touch in years. It was right after I first got sick. Nothing dramatic. Just fatigue that never went away. Migraines that blurred my vision. Joints that ached like I'd aged decades overnight. I'd told Mom. I'd even made a chart. Symptoms, dates, patterns. She laughed. Not cruelly, just like I was being dramatic. You've always been sensitive, Kayla. Maybe stop Googling things. And when the blood work came back, when the specialist used words like autoimmune and long-term, she looked disappointed. Like I'd let her down by not being stronger. Months later, without a heads up, I got a letter removed from the family health plan. Dad called it a practical decision. You're an adult now, he'd said. Time to carry your own weight. Back then, I believed them. Believed that needing help made me the problem. That maybe they were right, I was too much. I'd carried that guilt like a suitcase full of bricks. And now, driving further from them than I ever had before, I started to feel the first tiny shift. Not relief, but maybe the space to ask if I'd ever actually done something wrong. The cabin appeared after a long dirt road and a final, hesitant turn. It wasn't much, small, worn, tucked between thick trees, but it didn't look like a place for castaways. It looked like someone had taken care of it. Alec unlocked the door and stepped aside. I expected dust, maybe some mothballs and regret. Instead, I got a warm wooden interior, shelves lined with books, a fire already crackling, and a faint smell of cedar and mint tea. He led me to a guest room, small bed, a handmade quilt, even a record player on a crate turntable. I stood there, motionless. This okay? He asked. I nodded slowly. I thought it'd be worse. He smiled. Kind of. You always expect the worst. Only when I'm right. He made tea. We sat in front of the fireplace, steam curling up between us. I didn't talk. I didn't need to. He didn't ask. After a while, I whispered, I don't think I have the energy to be angry anymore. He didn't answer. Just passed me my mug and stared into the flames like they had more answers than either of us. Hours later, after the fire burned low and the walls felt more like shelter than prison, I checked my phone for the first time since dinner. One voicemail. My mother. Her voice was tight, tired. We just can't do this anymore, Kayla. Don't come back. That was it. No explanations, just gone. I closed my eyes. But another voicemail buzzed in. A number I barely recognized. Hey, it's Carly, your cousin. I heard what they did, and I think you should know something. This wasn't just about money or space or whatever story they told you. Someone from a charity approached them, offered to clear some debts in exchange for cutting contact with you. Said it was easier to allocate care funds when families were compliant. I know it sounds insane, but I saw the paperwork, they signed it, I dropped the phone, not because it slipped, because it burned. I sat there, staring at the cold screen. This wasn't abandonment. This was a deal. A transaction. They didn't just leave me. They sold me. I didn't cry. Not right away. Later, by the fire again, I cracked. But it wasn't loud. No screaming, no sobs. Just silence leaking from my chest. Like air from a tire. Alec didn't try to fix it. He sat beside me, didn't speak. They didn't just throw me out, I said. They sold me out. He nodded once. That's not on you. That's on them. That night, in the quiet of that unfamiliar bed, I whispered to no one. They didn't break me. They just made space for something else. And just before sleep pulled me under, one thought began pulsing louder than anything else. If they were willing to trade me away, what else were they hiding? I woke up, unsure if I'd ever really slept. The air in the room was still, like it hadn't moved all night. My body was heavy, stiff in all the ways that weren't just from lying in one position. Yesterday's clothes still clung to me. Creases, smells, everything intact. I didn't bother changing. There didn't seem to be much point. Through the small window, early morning light filtered in like it was unsure it belonged here. I sat up, pulled the thin blanket off, and stood barefoot on the wooden floor. Somewhere outside, I heard steady thuds, Alec, chopping wood. His rhythm was unbothered, like the night hadn't changed anything, like he hadn't heard me fall apart next to the fire. The hallway creaked beneath my steps as I moved slowly through the cabin. It wasn't big, but there were pieces of him in every corner. Books arranged by spine color. A half-finished puzzle on the coffee table. Photos of our grandmother on the mantel, one in particular, where she stood tall at a family reunion, hand on my shoulder, smiling like she saw something in me no one else bothered to. I paused at the kitchen table. A crossword puzzle sat unfinished, a black pen laid across it. Beside it was a manila folder with my name scribbled on the tab in Alec's handwriting. Medical divided by legal, Kayla. I knew I shouldn't. Knew it might be nothing. Or everything. But I opened it anyway. The letter sat on top, crisp, typed, printed on plain white paper, addressed to our old insurance provider. This is to formally request the removal of Kayla Jennings from the family policy due to sustained financial hardship. It went on. A full page of clean professional wording. Financial liability. Burden. Mutual understanding. It ended with my name, typed. A signature line. But it wasn't mine. The language, the structure, even the font felt alien. I never wrote this, and I sure as hell didn't sign away my own coverage without knowing. I stood frozen, letter in hand, when the door behind me clicked. Alex stepped inside, wiping his hands on his jeans. His eyes locked on the paper. You found it. I didn't ask permission. Where did you get this? He exhaled slowly. I started pulling threads when you first told me they dropped you from the plan. I knew something was off. I've been digging carefully. This is forged. I said, voice flat. He nodded. Yeah, I stared at it again. Why didn't you show me before? Because until now, it would have just made things worse. I didn't want to hand you another weight to carry until I had something solid. And now I do. He didn't say anything else. I stepped outside and let the morning air hit me full in the face. Cold. Honest. I stood there breathing like I hadn't in weeks. Then I hit the nearest tree. Fist first. Hard enough to split the skin, pain flared instantly, sharp and clean. The tree didn't flinch. I did. Alec was there before I could turn around, wrapping my hand in a bandana he must have pulled from his back pocket. He didn't scold me. Didn't ask why. Just tied the cloth tight and held my wrist like it meant something. You're allowed to be mad, he said. Just don't let them define what comes next. I looked past him. Past the trees. Past the world I'd been shoved out of. They didn't just turn their backs on me. They rewrote the story to make me look like the problem. And it worked. For a long time it worked. Inside, I sat down at his desk. Hand throbbing, stomach hollow. I pulled the laptop toward me and typed my own name into a public record search. Old donations, campaign support, even a mention in a regional newsletter about community-driven charity disbursements. One line stood out, my father's name next to a foundation I'd never heard of. I copied the name and pasted it into another tab. A contact form popped up. Just a name, email, and message box. I hovered over it, heart racing, fingers still tingling. I didn't type anything. Yet. Alex stood behind me, silent. There's a lawyer I know, he finally said. Retired. Owes me a favor. I nodded, filed it away, then opened a new document. No formatting. No title. Just blank space and a blinking cursor. And then I started, this is the truth they didn't want told. I wasn't just going to defend myself anymore. I was going to build something they couldn't tear down. The gown wasn't mine. I'd borrowed it from a friend of Alex, simple dark gray, elegant enough to slip through a crowd without drawing too much attention. Still, Every inch of fabric felt like armor. Or a lie. Alec drove us toward the gala, one hand steady on the wheel, the other flipping through radio stations before giving up. Silence filled the car, save for the rhythm of the road beneath us. We were both thinking the same thing. He just said it first. They throw these galas every year, he muttered. Guilt, dressed in sequins, PR, pretending to be philanthropy. The venue was downtown, a glossy building wrapped in lights and ivy. Inside, chandeliers sparkled like diamonds, casting gold on polished floors and perfect smiles. Waiters floated with silver trays. Laughter rang out in short, clipped bursts. Faces I hadn't seen in years, some never cared to know me, turned as we walked in. I spotted my mother near the entrance, shaking hands with a city councilman. Her smile was all teeth. My sister, poised in a satin sheath, moved like she'd been born for this room. And there he was, Talonis centered in a group of donors, shaking heads, laughing at things that weren't funny. My chest tightened. This wasn't charity. This was theater. The speeches started around 8. One of the MCs called for silence. Lights dimmed slightly. Guests turned their bodies, drinks in hand, all anticipation. A voice took the stage. Talonis. His face was polished, his words smoother than usual. He began by thanking the foundation, the family, the donors. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. And tonight, he beamed, we highlight the success of a new product line, one born of family innovation, driven by resilience, and soon to reach national release. Applause followed, but no name was given. I knew that product. I designed it on my couch, in pain, on days when I couldn't get out of bed. I'd sent drafts to my sister for feedback. I'd shared it during family calls, back when they still answered. Now, it was being handed to the world without me. Talonis gestured, and a staffer brought the prototype on stage. He took it, then this part almost made me laugh, walked straight to me, placed the object in my hands like a trophy. A testament to teamwork, he said, with a glance that dared me to make a scene. A camera flashed. I didn't move. He turned back, leaving me there like a placeholder, like a prop. They'd erase me and use my body to sell the lie. Later, while people filtered toward the back of the hall for champagne and photo ops, they unveiled the Wall of Honor. Gold plaques gleamed on white stone. Names of donors, creators, visionaries. Alec and I walked slowly toward it, my pulse already preparing me for impact. There was her name, my sister's, right below Talonis's. Mine wasn't there. A guest behind us whispered too loudly to be an accident. I thought this was her thing. Another chuckled, uncomfortable. Someone pointed. My face flushed hot. Alex stepped closer. You okay? I didn't answer. Just muttered. They didn't even hide it well. I was still standing there, stunned, when a staffer bumped my shoulder carrying a tray. A board member offered a tired smile and said, We'll update it next year. As if I should thank him. I didn't move toward the bar. I didn't run. I turned back into the crowd, hunting one face. Found him laughing near a cluster of corporate sponsors. Talonis. I walked right up to him. His smile froze the moment he saw me. If this is your innovation, I said, loud enough to hush the people around us. Why was my name left off the wall? His mouth opened, closed. He adjusted his cufflink like it held the answer. Oh, I think there's been a mix-up, he said too quickly. This is a team effort. You know how branding works. Sometimes it's easier to streamline things for clarity, I cut in, or control. People were turning. He looked past me, searching for a lifeline. My mother appeared beside him, calm, practiced. Sweetheart, this is a misunderstanding. We'll fix it. No, I said, eyes locked on her. You made a choice, all of you. You just didn't expect me to show up. Alec was behind me, silent, solid. I felt every nerve in my body telling me to leave, to cry, to scream, but I didn't. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, You may not control all the events that happen to you. I paused, but you can choose not to be reduced by them. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was electric. Flashbulbs snapped. Conversation stopped mid-sentence. And in that moment, I saw it, Talonis' smile falter, my mother's eyes finally drop. This night was never about celebration. It was the start of the reckoning. The morning light slipped through the cabin blinds, brushing across the floor like a quiet dare. I sat up slowly, unsure if I'd actually slept or just laid there with my eyes closed all night. The echoes of the gala still stirred behind my ribs, my mother's voice, Talonis's smirk, that wall without my name. But under all that noise was something steadier, like steel cooling into shape. Alec was already up, at the table. His laptop screen glowed pale blue. He didn't say good morning, just turned the screen toward me, showed a draft press release titled, "The Truth You Weren't Meant to Hear. There's no going back after this," he said. I stood up, rubbed my arms, nodded once. Good. He handed me a printed version. A separate sheet held a prepared statement. It was short, sharp, mine. This time, Alex said, "You control the narrative." I read it out loud once. Then again, until the words didn't just sound like mine, they felt like they came from bone. We packed light and drove into town. No, planned to hide. No interest in shrinking. By noon, the small rented stage in front of City Hall was buzzing. The banner overhead read Community Innovation Forum, which was a nice enough cover. Local media showed up. A few community folks, a couple familiar faces from the Stroud orbit, standing back with careful expressions. Alec gave the intro, steady and short. Then it was me. I stepped up and looked out, not with fear. Not anymore. "My name is Kayla Stroud," I began. And for years, I believed silence was survival. Murmurs. But that silence allowed others to rewrite my life without me in it. I was not invited to build their empire, so I'll build mine. Gasps, claps, even a cheer. I shared what I could about the product, my diagnosis, how I'd been cut out without explanation. I didn't name names, but I didn't need to, so the people who'd been watching this family long enough could put the puzzle together, and they were tired of the same faces on the plaques. "I'm launching a new initiative," I continued. "A company that centers chronic illness patients in every decision, design, and delivery." Alec handed me the prototype. "This isn't just innovation." I said, "It's personal." Applause rose again, stronger this time. Cameras flashed. But then a reporter stepped forward. Older woman, neutral face. "Miss Stroud," she asked, "what about the voicemail from your mother? The one that said, 'We can't do this anymore.'" The air thinned. I didn't blink. "I've heard it." The reporter clicked a button on a recorder. That voice, my mother's voice, came out low and tired. "We just can't do this anymore, Kayla. I'm sorry." Some in the crowd looked away. Others leaned in. Behind the press row, I saw her standing in the back. My mother, watching. Face unreadable. I didn't look away. "I never asked to be replaced," I said into the mic. "But I won't be silenced. Not anymore." Silence fell again this time, not awkward, not cold. Just waiting. After the event, I stepped down from the stage and into a blur of noise. People shook my hand, some hugged me, others kept their distance. Alec pulled me into the van parked behind City Hall. Inside, my small team huddled over screens, refreshing social media feeds, watching the video clips spread. Comments rolled in, support, criticism, questions. Then a message came through. Anonymous number. "Watch your back. Don't get too big too fast. Your family." My hand trembled only slightly. I looked at Alec, then typed back, "I won't back down," hit send. Then I leaned my head against the cool van window, closed my eyes, whispered to myself, "Let them threaten. I have nothing left to lose." When I opened my eyes, she was still standing in the crowd, watching from a distance. My mother. And I realized they just turned their pain into my platform. I arrived early. The law office's hallway smelled of polished wood and fresh paper. My palms tightened around the folder I carried. Alec and Hollis were already inside, setting up. Stacks of public record pages, printed statements, that forged letter from before, and a USB drive marked evidence. I wandered to the window, staring out at the parking lot. That glossy black sedan that just pulled in Malik's car. They had come. My heart pulsed like a warning drum. I took in a breath. My fingers pressed the note in my jacket pocket. I will not be broken by their silence. I repeated it to myself until the trembling softened. This was the moment I'd waited for. Before the door swung fully open, Dresden walked in. He wore a tailored suit, no hesitation, no apology. The room hushed. The Stroud family's legal counsel glanced at him. Dresden held out a sealed envelope. "They told me to stay away," he said, voice steady. I stayed to gather proof. Alex sank back in his chair. Hollis. Pause amid gesture. Dresden placed the envelope between us, opened it, and pulled out papers. Ledger entries, audio logs, bank transfers linking the charity funds to family accounts. Even a deed. The ledgers showed money flowing into shell accounts controlled by Stroud interests. The room felt smaller, tighter. My palm grazed the page. That edge, that ink, it was real. My brother had not abandoned me. He'd been preparing. They entered then. Malik, Calvina, Talonis. The tension shifted, chairs scraped. Malik's voice tried to steady. "Let's have a civil discussion." But I stood. I said calm but firm. "Professional? You forged letters and erased me from your narrative." Calvina's expression stiffened. Talonis leaned forward, sneering. "Kayla, you're making drama," he said. I placed both hands on the table, leaned in. "You made a show of charity while conspiring behind my back." "That's not charity. That's manipulation." Silence slammed into them. Hollis's eyes flicked between faces. The counsel swallowed. I felt all their masks cracking. Hollis motioned. The assistant hit play on a small speaker. My mother's voice filled the space. Shaky, ragged. "We can't do this anymore, Kayla." It echoed. Haunted. I turned to Calvina. "Now we all know why you pushed me out." Her lips parted, then pressed shut. She stood abruptly. "That's out of context," she spat, and stormed out. Talonis faltered, then followed in silence. Malik stayed seated, his face ashen, staring at the ledger. The hush was deafening. Hollis cleared his throat. "We are filing an interim restraining order," he declared, pen scratching. "They are barred from public statements or destroying evidence." The balance had shifted. For years they'd controlled the narrative. Now the narrative controlled them. Dresden's hand rested gently on my shoulder. I gathered the documents, feeling a force in my back steadier than fear. I took one last look at Malik. "You thought silence would protect you. Silence won't save you now." I walked out, past the glass doors, into a hallway alive with camera flashes and murmured voices. I wasn't walking away broken. I was walking out, rebuilt, equipped with proof, purpose, reclamation. Dresden's old house smelled like cedar and old paper. He led me through a back corridor to a door with a rusted lock one he said no one else had dared open in years. The room beyond was heavy with dust motes and silence. Boxes lined the walls. Legal binders sat in stacks. Old journals lay strewn across folding tables. Framed photos leaned against planks. Worn edges, sepia tones. I wandered past them until I stopped at a portrait of me as a child, grinning beside my grandfather before sickness stole the light. My throat caught. Dresden flipped open a weathered ledger. I saw my name, scrawled in his handwriting across early entries, promises of inheritance, lines dividing shares never delivered. I traced each line with a finger. Tears threatened, but I swallowed them. "Everything they hid, they kept here," he said quietly. My eyes scanned the wall of faces. Then I found it. The original family portrait. Grandparents, parents, siblings, me in the center. My chest tightened. I remembered the version that hung in the Stroud mansion, except in that one my image was missing. Erased. I confronted Dresden. "They changed the photograph?" I asked. He nodded. "I kept this. They destroyed the original to hide you, to control what people saw." My heart thundered. The erasure wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. A lie painted across memory. The weight of that made my legs tremble. I moved deeper in the archive, pulling at a false wall panel. Inside, tucked behind a thin sheet of plywood, was a letter in fragile paper. My grandfather's handwriting, slanted and steady. I peeled it out and sank to my knees. The words burned. "If they ever try to silence you, remember who carried you first." And below, parts of a will stating I was rightful heir to a trust held separately, hidden behind corporate shells. Twist and betrayal collided in my chest. They diverted that trust, buried it under shell companies, and pretended I never existed. I clutched the letter, dizzy with betrayal. grief, and sudden resolve. Dresden set up his phone in a small light. "Speak," he said. I steadied myself. I read the letter aloud, every sentence burning with truth. My voice shook. "I carry more than their shame." I finished. For a moment, the archive held only our breath. Then I turned to Dresden. "Record this, broadcast it. This is the proof." I drafted a statement, forged letters, photo erasure, hidden trust. I composed an open letter to our community. "This is not a request. This is my story." Alex's voice crackled in from the speaker. "You're doing what they never could, standing in your own name." Every secret, I believe buried, was stirring. Every eye I couldn't see beyond was turning toward the archive. By the time I arrived at the square, the sun was high and sharp, like it had something to prove. A podium stood at the center, with banners rippling above it, reading truth and justice. Reporters paced behind yellow tape, adjusting mics. Alex stood off to the side, double-checking the live stream setup. He handed me a folded sheet, the speech we'd edited late into the night. I held it, but I didn't need to read it. I'd already lived every word. People gathered slowly, locals, strangers, curious neighbors, and then I saw them, my mother, Talonis, Malik, off to the side, postured like they still believed they held the stage. Their faces didn't show regret, just the tight expression of people caught out in public, trying to act like it didn't matter. I stepped up to the mic. My palms didn't shake. Not this time. This is the moment they hoped I'd disappear. The crowd fell quiet. I held up the original family portrait first, the one with me still in it. They erased me from this. Then came the forged letter, the legal trust records, the voice memo from my mother, her voice cracking under the weight of what they did. It played raw and real over the speakers. You could hear people shift in their seats. I didn't look at her. "You erased me. You lied about me. And now I will reclaim my name," a reporter shouted from the front. "What about the charity money? Were those donations tied to your exile?" I didn't blink. Charity doesn't require betrayal, and betrayal sure doesn't deserve applause. Cameras flashed, not at me, but at the corner where the Strouds stood still. They weren't used to not controlling the shot. I was just warming up. Then came the manila envelopes handed to me mid-speech by a press aide who looked pale, just holding them. I opened one. Legal language. Specific names. A diagram of shell companies all tracing back to Stroud hands. They'd hidden the trust funds beneath a mountain of fake fronts and called it family planning. The mic caught everything. Robert Frost once said, "The woods are lovely, dark and deep, but I have promises to keep." I let that sit. And mine begin with this. No more silence. Someone, I think it was Talonis, muttered something and took a step toward the stage. Their attorney tried to pull him back. Too late. I spoke over it. "Your silence tonight speaks louder than any defense you'll ever write." The crowd clapped. Not polite applause. Something deeper. Like they felt seen too. My mother, for once, said nothing. Her lips pressed tight, arms crossed. She looked older. Not from age, from exposure. Malek looked like he wanted to disappear. Talonis clenched his jaw. Too proud to retreat, too gutless to engage. Alex stepped up beside me. No big gesture, just stood there. "This empire you built on erasures ends today." Reporters rushed in, questions flying. I stepped back from the mic. I wasn't going to let them twist this into a headline war. I had already said what mattered. I walked off the stage, past them slowly. They wouldn't look me in the eye. I didn't care. "I don't need your acknowledgement," I said as I passed. I claimed my own respect. The first thing I noticed walking into the office that morning was the light. Warm, honest, not the sterile kind you find in law firms or hospitals. It poured through the big windows and landed right on the new wooden desk we salvaged from a thrift store down on South Congress. I ran my hand over the surface, smooth now, but scarred. I liked that. It had history. The room smelled like fresh paint and brewed coffee. Posters lined the wall. Women in suits, women in hard hats, women smiling. We'd printed out photos of our first group of business graduates, 5 women who'd walked through the fire and come out carrying something of their own. Alec was already there, scrolling through updates. "Funding's locked for the next year," he said. "And we've got 3 more sign-ups for next month's training." He smiled, then added, We're going to need a bigger whiteboard. I nodded and turned to the framed photo on my desk. Me, maybe 6 years old, sitting on my brother's shoulders in front of Grandpa's porch. He was grinning so wide you could practically hear it. I whispered, "We made it." And for the first time, I didn't feel like I was lying. Just then, a knock at the door. A young volunteer peeked in, nervous. "Miss Kayla, do you have a second? One of the new ladies has questions about the intake form." I told her I'd be right there. It hit me in that moment. People were looking to me now, not because of a last name or a headline, but because I had stood my ground and built something. That afternoon, I found the envelope. No return address, just my name on the front. Inside a letter. Handwritten. I knew the pen strokes before I finished the first line. It was my mother. She didn't apologize, not outright. She talked about fear, about trying to protect the family name, about silence, feeling safer than standing up. "I see you now," she wrote. That was all. I stared at it for a long time. My gut twisted, but not the way it used to. I felt sad, sure, maybe even a little angry, but mostly I felt finished. I didn't write her back. I folded the letter, tucked it into the drawer beside the photo of me in Dresden, and closed it softly. That was enough. The week rolled on, and we prepped for our first official community graduation. We held it in the same square where I'd spoken weeks earlier. This time, the banner said, "Second chances begin here." The women wore thrifted blazers and dollar store lipstick. They looked like giants. I stepped up to the mic, no script, just heart. "I want to thank you all," I said. "Not just for being here, but for proving that the quiet strength of a woman rebuilding herself is the loudest kind of hope we've got." They clapped, but I didn't cry. I just breathed it in. Afterward, Alec and I stood back, watching them pose for photos. One of them hugged her son so tight I thought he might break in half. Alec leaned in, voice low. "Your brother would have been proud." I looked straight ahead. He was the first to believe in me. I had to become someone worth that belief. Then we unveiled the plaque together. Simple, bold. The Kayla and Alex Foundation for Second Chances. Just seeing our names there, not buried under somebody else's legacy, it felt like air. Later that week, a journalist came to interview me. Not with a camera crew or a gotcha question, just a notebook and genuine curiosity. She asked what I'd tell other women trying to claw their way back after being broken. I said some families build you up, some tear you down, so you learn to build yourself. Either way you build. On the walk home, the sun was dipping low, but the city still hummed around me. Kids laughing near the splash pad, bus brakes squealing, two old women arguing over coupons on a bench. It was all so alive. I thought of who I used to be, quiet, aching, invisible, and then, out loud, just to myself, I said, "They kicked me out, but I walked into my future."